Carlos Yulo won the all-around at the Asian Championships. The Japanese Olympic team has been named, and we are going to go in depth into the U.S. Olympic Selection Procedures. For those new here, my name is Kinsley, and I'm the host of Neutral Deductions, a podcast all about men's gymnastics. This is episode 31, a deep dive into the U.S. Olympic Selection Procedures and a breakdown of the Japanese Olympic team.
This is the Neutral Deductions podcast, men's gymnastic news, coverage, and analysis. Hosted by Kinsley Beal.
Diving right into the U.S. selection procedures, results from the National Championships in Fort Worth and the U.S. Olympic Trials in Minneapolis will both be used to select the Olympic team. The only way for an athlete to automatically qualify is to be the top all-arounder at Olympic trials only, and also to place top 3 on 3 events. Now, this is not a given that this will happen. This is not like the women's program where it's just the top all-arounder. Last year at the National Championship, Asher Hong won the all-around, but he did not place top 3 on 3 events. However, Brody Malone and Sam McCulloch did accomplish this benchmark. So in 2021 and 2022, Brody accomplished that benchmark, and Sam did that in 2018 and 2019. But if you go back just a few more years further, Yul Moldauer did not accomplish that when he won in 2017, and Sam McCulloch did not accomplish this feat in 2016. In fact, I went back counting back to 2004, both national championships and Olympic trials, and only 12 of the 23 athletes who won the all-around at those competitions also placed top 3 on 3 events. So all this to say, don't be surprised if the Olympic trials champion is not automatically named to the team. Now, if someone is named to the team, then they will be considered in all scoring scenarios to finish to pick the final Olympic team for the U.S. So let's say that Asher Hong wins and is top 3 on 3 events. All team scenarios must include him to choose the Olympic team. Otherwise, the selection committee will just begin to look at the teams considering all of the athletes who fit into the highest scoring team scenarios. So an important note about this is it's extremely improbable that the winner will not be named to the team, but it definitely could happen. And we saw an example of this last year. So last year, Colt Walker would have won the all-around without the bonus system, but he was not part of the highest scoring team that got sent to Worlds. So when they looked at highest scoring team, they did not use the U.S. bonus system. So that would be an example of someone who would have won the all-around again without the bonus system and still was not part of the highest scoring team. Now, I don't think this is probably going to happen this year, but it certainly could. So again, first thing that they're going to look at is there an all-arounder who also scored top 3 on 3 events? And once it has been decided whether or not there is that automatic qualifier, then the selection committee begins to look at the different team scenarios. So there's 2 main data sets that the committee is going to look at. And the first in priority order is using the top 3 scores from the 4 days of competition, meaning that the athletes get a throwaway score. And when I talked to high performance director Brett McClure, he was talking about it's important that athletes be able to have a bad day and still be able to be considered for the team. Now, the second data set uses all 4 days of scores, meaning that both days of nationals and both days of trials will be considered. So it's still not a perfect scenario to have a score that you might need to throw away, but it doesn't mean that you're completely out of the Olympic selection should you have a really bad day on, let's say, pommel horse. So at this point, looking at these 2 data sets, they will only consider the top 5 scoring teams within these 2 data sets. And this is where it starts to get a little bit complicated, so hold on tight.
Neutral Deductions recently launched this year and is entirely funded by listener contributions. If you'd like to support the show and help promote men's gymnastics, kindly consider making a donation through the PayPal link provided in the show notes. All donations are greatly appreciated. Thank you.
So if one of these top scoring teams leaves an event and qualification that can only be covered by 3 athletes, then it must be at least half a point higher than the next highest scoring team. So an example of this could be a team with Fred Richard, Koi Young, and Asher Hong. So you have your 3 all-arounders. They can cover all 3 events. Then you have Steven Edorosik, who's a pommel horse specialist, and Kern Phillips, who effectively only competes vault, parallel bars, and high bar. This team would mean that floor and still rings would only have 3 athletes to be able to compete in qualification because only Fred, Coy, and Asher could compete on those events. So for that team to be considered, they must be at least half a point higher than the next highest scoring team. And if they aren't half a point better, then this team option will be removed entirely from the process. So it doesn't mean all of those athletes are removed. It just means that that particular team composition will be removed from the process. So after these scenarios are all established, if the remaining top scoring teams from data set 1 and 2 are the same, then everything is super easy. That is the Olympic team. There is no selecting to be done by the selection committee. Basically, the team would select itself. I'm not convinced that this is going to happen. So if that doesn't happen, what happens next is then they look at the top scoring scenarios. And if the highest scoring team is more than 2 points ahead of the other 4 scoring teams, then that will be the Olympic team. I don't think that's going to happen either. So then if it doesn't happen, it moves to discretionary selection among the top 5 scoring teams. If that doesn't happen, then it moves to discretionary selection among the top 5 scoring teams. I could see it going either way. I could see a team potentially auto-selecting using highest scoring, but I won't be surprised if it goes to selection. The selection committee can name a total of 10 athletes to the Olympic team. So in the United States, if you are named as an alternate, you are considered part of the Olympic team. So even though the IOC doesn't recognize alternates as Olympians, the U.S. Olympic Committee does. So they can name 5 competing athletes to the team, up to 2 traveling alternates, and then 3 non-traveling alternates. And those results will be announced after the second day of competition at Olympic trials in Minneapolis. Moving on to the first Olympic team that has been selected, that is Japan's Olympic team, which is of Hashimoto Daiki, Kaya Kazuma, Tanegawa Wataru, Oka Shinosuke, and Sugino Takaki. So Hashimoto earned his spot by being the 2023 World All-Around Champion. So while he did end up competing in the first selection event, which was the All Japan Championships, he didn't actually need to. He was already named as an Olympian to the Japanese team. He did end up withdrawing from the NHK Cup, which was the second part of Japan's Olympic selection procedures, due to a hand injury. The next 2 spots for the team were automatic selections based on the all-around rankings at the NHK Cup. So the 2 remaining spots went to Oka Shinosuke, who won the NHK Cup, securing his spot. And according to the Olympic Channel, certain Japanese officials have said that they believe that the 20-year-old has an outside shot at a gold medal at the Olympic Games. So for those unfamiliar with Oka, he won the all-around at the 2019 Junior World Championships, and also he won the all-around last year at the Asian Championships. He has been scoring 86s all season with multiple major errors at each competition. So if he could put it all together, he really could look to challenge for gold. While I'm not convinced that he is going to be totally flawless in Paris, I think he should be considered the frontrunner for the bronze medal behind Hashimoto and Jung. The second all-arounder to earn his spot for the Olympic Games was none other than Dr. Kaya Kazuma, and his resume certainly speaks for itself. So he's an 8-time world medalist and 2-time Olympic medalist. He's a solid all-arounder, and pommel horse is his best event. He's won a couple of world and Olympic medals there. His main weakness, in my opinion, is his inconsistency on vault. So he's often a bit scrappy, and he's more unreliable than is ideal in a team final scenario. The 4th member of the team was Sugino Takaki, and he placed 5th, meaning the selection committee skipped over number 3 Doi Ryosuke and number 4 Tanaka Yusuke. So this will be Sugino's first world or Olympic team, and he brings to Japan a very strong pommel horse set where he's won several World Cup medals. He also scored over 15 on high bar at Japanese nationals and will be expected to compete there in team finals as well. The final spot could go to anyone who could fill in the team, and that spot went to Tanigawa Wataru, who placed 12th in the all-around. Tanigawa is the oldest member of the team, edging out Kaya by a few months. He is the 2022 World All-Around Bronze medalist and was also part of the silver medal winning team in Tokyo. He clinched his spot for this team by his Risei Guang 2 vault. It was spectacular. It's a handspring front double pike half-out vault that he stuck, and you could just see the emotion in his face when he stuck it. He started crying, knowing that he had likely secured his spot. So all in all, for this Japan team, 3 of the 4 members from the 2020 team are returning, and the alternate will be Doi Rosuke. Moving on to the Asian Championships, Carlos Yulo finally looked back to his old form. He has left his former coach, and he ended up winning the all-around here at the Asian Championships. He was followed by Milad Karimi in second and Abdullah Azimov of Uzbekistan in third. And so Abdullah Azimov, he ended up clinching the Olympic spot, and so the only Olympic spot left to be clinched is the all-around at the Oceania Championship. So that brings us to our upcoming championships. So May 25th through 26th, Oceania Championships are happening, and there are really 3 all-arounders from New Zealand and 3 from Australia who are heavily competing for this spot. The U.S. Nationals is going to be happening in Fort Worth, Texas, May 30th through June 2nd. And again, that will be the first part of the U.S. Olympic Selection Procedures. That is the end of today's podcast. If you would, please rate and review us on Apple Podcasts or wherever you get your podcast. It really helps others find neutral deductions and learn more about men's gymnastics. It takes a lot of work and effort to help bring this coverage to life, so please consider donating. We are entirely listener supported at this point, and even $10 helps us cover a meal. So we are sending our graphic designer and content writer to the U.S. National Championships, and if you would like to help support his work and help support my work and my remote coverage, that would mean so much, and you can donate via PayPal and Stripe. If you have any questions, comments, or insider tips, you can email us at neutraldeductions@gmail.com. That's all for this week. We'll see you next time.